What's going on, everybody? My name is John Poznansky.
And I am Harry, and welcome to episode number 10 of Destination Talk with Paz and Harry. We come to you from Chop Studios, located at 750 Route 34 in Matawan, New Jersey. And today we are joined by Coach Joe LaSala. Coach is now currently at Montclair State University. He is the quarterbacks and pass game coordinator coach. He's an assistant recruiting coordinator. Prior to his position at Montclair State, he was the wide receivers coach at FDU Florham. And prior to that, he was the head coach at Woodbridge High School of their football team for the last 6 years. Coach, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join us. And how's everything going?
Oh, it's going well. I appreciate you guys having me. Super excited to be here today.
No, we appreciate you being in here. And just, kind of leading off of the introduction that we put in there, tell us, can you add a little bit more to what with the introduction, a little bit more about yourself and, what sports were you involved with, growing up, and what ultimately led you to football?
Yeah, so, my dad was a high school football coach. I was, heavily involved growing up. I played, to be honest, I played soccer in the beginning. Played baseball, basketball, football. And then right around high school, that's when I started going ahead and getting into football and basketball. Did that in high school, graduated from Colonial like Paz here.
Yes.
In 2007, went to Montclair State, played there, had some tremendous coaches along the way. The principal at Colonial High School right now, Chris Chiera, obviously my dad, and Ken Pace. Your high school coaches always have the most influence on you.
Right.
And then I knew I wanted to get into coaching right away. Coached with my dad for my first year in 2012, fell in love with it, and then it's just been history from there. Coached with Coach Rorty after my dad moved up to athletic director. Coached with Coach Rorty from 2012 to 2017. We had a lot of successful seasons at that time. I think John was just getting into high school then. Then had the opportunity to go over to Woodbridge, was a Woodbridge head football coach, that made the jump into the college level. So that's kind of my journey. That's how I got here today, and it's been a fun one.
Awesome. So what are some of the differences between high school football players versus college football players from what you've seen?
Well, first of all, the age difference, right? You're talking about a 14-year-old compared to like a 21, 22-year-old. So, just the conversations in general. You could have more mature conversations. A lot of times, hey, what are you doing after college? What are you trying to go ahead and get yourself into? How are you going to go ahead and make money and get to that next phase of your life? Also, the learning curve is much quicker rather.
Right.
You could tell a guy maybe once, twice, and then he'll be able to understand it. When you go to the high school level, like the gap is real big, right? You got guys who've never played football before, right? That just want to go ahead and try it out, try to want to be part of something. And you got guys who, maybe been playing for a couple years, and then you got guys who have aspirations, to go Division I or play at the college level. So that gap is so much bigger. So, that's the biggest difference that I found. But I really fell in love with, I love football in general. I love coaching in general, but I fell in love with the working with the college guys because there's a maturity there that can't be taught. That just comes with time. So makes things a little bit easier, less chaotic.
You just made the move over to Montclair State. So for those who are out there, maybe sophomores, juniors in high school who are playing football, why would they or should they consider playing at Montclair State University?
Well, number one, great campus. There's 22,000 people on the campus. I went to school there. The difference between 2012 when I left and what it looks like now is totally different. I was actually taken back when I went there. The facilities, all right, the football facilities are playing in a great conference in NJAC with all the New Jersey schools in there. Highly competitive. There's a defensive tackle. His name's Chris Arnold. He's getting NFL looks. We got a lot of high caliber players. So that the cost is right. We have 81 majors. And then lastly, the people, the coaching staff are a young staff, highly energetic. And we love football and we love our guys. So, when you match all those things together, it really works for a good working relationship. And like I said, we have 81 majors. So, what you want to go ahead and study, you're going to go ahead and get your degree and then go to the next phase of your life. A lot of times guys go to a school, they don't get their degree and what they actually want to go ahead and do. And then they got to go back to school. And that's what you don't want to do, right? You want to go to college, you want to play, But then as soon as it's done, you want to get into the workforce. You don't want to go back to school. And I'm in conversations with one of my receivers who's actually going to go ahead and do that. He had a communications degree, I believe it was, but he wants to go ahead and be a coach. So now he's going back to be a phys ed teacher, 2-year program, which, again, everybody's journey and path is a little bit different, but you want to try to go ahead and avoid that at all costs.
Indirectly, I have a relationship with Montclair State because I went to Caldwell University.
Okay.
But at the time, it was known as Caldwell College. So I have the distinct honor of having been on the very first baseball team they had, albeit much earlier than you guys, in 1996.
Okay.
Our home field was Montclair State University for the first year, and our actual first head coach, Charlie Honecker, had come over from Montclair State. He was their pitching coach, so he was the first ever coach of the first ever baseball team at Caldwell, what's now university, but at the time college. And we would drive from Caldwell down Bloomfield Avenue to make our way over to Montclair State, and we'd park outside of a gate and have to walk up a hill.
Yep,
to
the
get
hill's still
on,
there
to get onto the baseball field.
They just redid the baseball stadium. I think they merged with NJIT.
Yeah.
Yogi Berra Stadium.
Yes.
It's phenomenal right now.
It's funny. We always talk about how things circle back around, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
So working with quarterbacks, the offense, what is your overall coaching philosophy when it comes to developing quarterbacks in the offense?
So I think it all goes kind of hand in hand here. As far as your offense, the quarterback is, he drives the car. He has the keys. So, you want to teach him, on the mental level, right, mechanical level, and the footwork level. And all three things got to work in phase in order to be a successful quarterback, right? You could throw the ball 60, 70 yards, but if, let's just say, your feet or mentally you can't go ahead and read the game, it's just not going to go ahead and work. But from an offensive perspective, you want to do a lot, all right? A little bit, a lot of different ways. And, I'm a believer in that. Dress things up, but constantly running the same plays over and over with a lot of different looks. So, just this past year at FDU, we motioned 70% of the time, and we were really good at getting our players in the correct positions to be successful. And without getting too technical, for the people out there that are listening, we wanted to get our guys matched up with the correct guys who we thought, all right, this guy could go ahead and beat this guy. So how do we match him up in our scheme, right, so that he could go ahead and win his one-on-one battle and put him in the best position to be successful? And, this past season, worked with a lot of great guys at FDU, scored 32 points a game. We had 7 wins. It was a lot of fun, and we had a lot of success.
Right.
And tried to do that at the high school level, was successful there with it. Learned how to organize it a little bit better at the college level, and then have the opportunity to go ahead and kind of bring that over to Montclair State, that same philosophy with a lot of talented players on the roster.
You're dealing with more than one person at a time, obviously. The quarterback, the offense in general. It could be, I'm not quite sure how many guys make up that side of the ball as a whole. But how do you tailor your coaching techniques to the different personalities?
Yeah, so
it's not like a one size fits all, right?
Yeah. That's not going to work. That maybe in the 1960s, 70s,
right.
That's how it was coaching. But you got to actually get to know the players, right? So a lot of meeting time, a lot of just conversations to figure out what makes these guys tick, what's their goals, what's their aspirations, where they want to go ahead and get to. Once you realize where they want to go ahead and get to and what they're trying to accomplish, then it becomes, all right, this is how I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get you there. Right. And then anytime you don't meet that criteria, you say, hey, this was your goal, right? This is what you wanted to go ahead and do, but now your actions aren't reflecting that, right? So again, you bring it back and you put the what's the word I'm looking for? The ownership in their actions to them. And once you go ahead and you figure that out, everything else goes ahead and takes care of itself. The guys learn to go ahead and trust you a lot more. And then they believe in you because they know you have your best interest.
Right.
And like I said, it goes back to like off season, having end of the year evaluations, being honest about the evaluations. Then after the spring, having those evaluations again and kind of just walking them through, hey, this is where I think you stand. This is where he thinks he stands, right? And then just have an honest conversation about, okay, so this is where we meet halfway. let's figure out how to go ahead and take that next step, whether it's on the field, in the classroom, in the weight room. You know, a lot of guys have a lot of talent, but maybe they're not strong enough if we're talking at the high school level.
Right.
Football is a developmental sport, right? A 14, 15-year-old might not be ready playing against an 18-year-old.
Right.
So, again, things take time, putting a lot of trust in the coach and staff to go ahead and get them there. You know, that's really the big one.
How important is film study?
Yeah, so the more film that you go ahead and watch, the more cues you're going to go ahead and you're going to pick up. You know, again, really good players, really good athletes in general, right? Like, and John, you probably you just dive in and you try to pick up any small detail that you can to give yourself an advantage, right? So you're wrestling against your opponent. You figure out, you know, when he likes to use what moves at what times, so on and so forth.
Correct.
It's the same for all sports, right? You know, during film study, you get, you know, tendencies, analytics, right? All that kind of stuff. You know exactly when they like to go ahead and pressure, what coverages they like to go ahead and play at what times, you know, when they're most likely to go ahead and do X, Y, and Z. Once you go ahead and you get that information, you're able to go ahead and get those numbers out. The players will understand that. But then watching it for yourself and seeing some type of tips, all right, you know, as far as the quarterback position, you know, really reading the safeties will go ahead and let you know what exactly is going on in the back end, right? So, you know, what you see pre-snap, right, before the ball snapped to you is going to be a lot different than what you see after the ball snapped to you. So, reading those guys, watching them rotate, looking at the techniques of the corners, inside leverage, outside leverage, and then that's also freeing up linebackers, so on and so forth. Now you'll know where your pressures are coming from, and if the defense tips their hat a little bit, then you're able to go ahead and change protection, so on and so forth. So, you know, all that stuff is done during the week leading up to go ahead and give yourself the best advantage that you could go ahead and get leading into Saturday, both as players and as coaches. So I don't think you can ever do enough, right? But at the same time, you can go ahead and watch too much film where you start to go ahead and overthink things.
Yeah.
So it's
You get into your head.
yeah, and you overanalyze things, and sometimes you just got to, you know, trust the process there and just trust your work and believe in that you're going to.
But it structures a plan. Film gives you a good plan going into each week.
Yeah. I mean, just think about where you would be if you didn't watch film, right?
Yeah.
So,
Correct.
you know, again, film study.
And Coach touches on that point of that think but don't think concept.
Correct. Yeah, that's Harry's big quote.
That's a big thing. I says, you know, you have to be able to think as an athlete, but you can't think when you're in the moment
Yeah.
because it's too late. You either can do it or you can't, and then you're going to worry about fixing it or making adjustments after the fact.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing I tell all the athletes I work with. It's think but don't think.
Yeah. Once it goes, you got to just go.
You know, you know, if we just speak about the quarterback, once the ball snapped, he's going to read the play or he's not.
Yeah.
You know, and the ball's going to either get into the right hands or the wrong hands or on the ground. But like, you know, he can't overanalyze it at that point.
And you don't want to make a bad play even worse.
Even worse, right?
So, you know, we talk about, like, you know, it's not always bad. Every drive should end in a kick. Rather, you're either kicking an extra point,
Right.
all right, or you're because you scored, or you're punting the ball and you're playing field position. But you know, don't make a bad play worse by trying to do something that you already made the mistake. Don't make it worse by going ahead and trying to extend a play, forcing a ball, so on and forth. Live to see another down.
So outside of the obvious, which is victories, how do you measure success and or progress on the field?
You know, ultimately, as competitors, you want to win, right? I don't think you ever walk off the field and you say, all right, you know, moral victories.
Right.
You know, I could go on a whole rant about that, right? You're either a winner or you're a loser.
Understood.
Yeah,
But there are other things that you're able to, you know, gauge a player's performance off of.
Definitely. I think that when you understand their starting point of where they started, right, and you know whether it's when they walk in as a freshman, all right, to where they left as a senior, or where you are in the beginning of camp, all right, to where you are, let's just say when the season actually starts, or where as a team where you are week 1 to week 10, right? I think that there are measures for success as you go ahead and go. Little things. Let's just say guys are more in a routine, right? They understand, what you're putting on the table. They're able to analyze things and understand it. But, you could get into the numbers. Like, okay, we had, we went from, let's just say, 115th in passing to like 50th, right? Right. You could look at those numbers, or you could look at the comfortability of the players. There's a lot of things. Again, just reading the room a lot of the times, right? Okay, like at Woodbridge, all right. We started off my career there. We were 1-4, right? But everybody at the time didn't realize that we started 1-1, but then we lost 3 straight. We lost to Sayreville 21-19, who was top 10 in the state. Then we lost to Edison, who was a state semifinalist, and then we lost to Edison, and then it was North Brunswick, who's also a state semifinalist, all Group 5 teams. At that time, you look at the outside, you look at the record, you're like, coach, these guys are 1-4, right? Outsides are like, this guy don't know what he's doing. But we seen the progress at that time. So even though the record didn't reflect, right, and you work with Sebastian and Jameer, that was their junior year, right? Those guys were bought in, but they were still a little bit young. So we had to go through some growing pains at that point. And then all of a sudden it clicks, right? And then we're 4-4, right? And then we're right on the outside. We lose actually to Colonia that year when they had Antonio Alfano, right? Number 1 player in the country. Just couldn't block him, right? His number 1 player in the country goes to Alabama. But we finished the season 5-5, right? And we got the plan in place for it to be successful. So again, overall, nobody wants to be 5-5. That's average. But when you take a step back and you look at the big picture, that set us up for success the following year. We get to 10 wins, right? And again, we had a lot of good players: Anthony Santino, Ali Lee, all those guys, Sebastian, who trains with you.
Yes.
But like, you had to go through that in order to get to the other side of it. And a lot of people don't understand that process that's involved. So again, not all of those things are measured with numbers and records and stuff like that. But as coaches, that's what you have to go ahead and take that step back and look.
And you brought up Sebastian, and when I met him a couple of years ago, here was this athletic big guy who really didn't move that well, for the collegiate level at the very least. And then I look at him, he was just in the facility this week, and by the time this podcast airs, he will have already played in a bowl game in Texas.
Yes, he's out there this weekend.
He's out there right now, and so so like my measure of success is similar to what you're saying. It's it's where are you at the end of this process, not so much at the beginning, because he's keeping up with guys that now his feet are fast, and that's progress. Yeah, and it just makes him an overall better athlete. At the end of the day, Bass.
I had to play against him. I coach against him this year. Sorry, him and John.
Yeah,
but and very talented Del Val team.
Yes,
but like, again, seeing, and I had to watch those guys on film while prepping for them. But seeing where he was as a junior in high school when I first walked in,
and then seeing him as a senior,
and he's a second team all conference player, and it's a credit to you, credit to him.
Thank you.
All right, for putting in all that, and it didn't go unnoticed, right? I was watching everything that was going on Twitter, and I talked to him constantly. Them guys really worked themselves to get to that point.
Yeah,
and again, nothing I love more than seeing those guys be successful after high school.
Just not against you.
Yeah, is what it is.
Yes.
During that 60 minutes, it was like, man, we can't block these guys. But after the game, seeing them and hugging them, and it's funny, like. And I'll go on it the whole day. Like, I have such good relationships. Those guys were over my house over Christmas break, and we were just sitting there talking. And I love those guys. Loved coaching them. They're a really good group of guys.
Hard workers, definitely hard workers.
Can you share an example of a player or who you coached who where you had a significant improvements under your guidance?
There's a lot of guys. I was fortunate enough, even back in my Colonia days when I was coaching, I first got going. That first season we were 9-2. I remember it was Trent Barney's. I ended up coaching both of his brothers, but he was my first quarterback that I coached. And we started the season 8-0 that year, lose to Carteret, get ourselves to the semifinals, finish 9-2. It's those guys, but. There's a lot of guys that, that they need football, right? And everybody sees the outside stuff, right? But they don't see what's actually done behind the scenes. And I'd say some of my best coaching was the guys who we use football as a vehicle to go ahead and get them to, stay out of trouble, graduate high school. Because you figure, where would they be if they didn't have all the structure, the discipline, and they didn't have the sport? So, as far as, the guys, like there's guys who never played a down of football who I would say that's my most best successful coaching points. That if I said their names, unless you played with them, you wouldn't even know them. Those are the guys. That's how I measure it. Obviously, I love seeing guys go ahead and be successful outside of, high school and stuff like that. But staying down the right path, staying out of trouble, getting a job, applying and going back to county college, try to get a degree. I have those conversations. Some of them were at my house. Those are some guys I butted heads with all throughout high school, but it was love. And I'm not going to say their names, but that's how I measure myself. And those are my feel good ones. That's why I do it.
Awesome.
You've got recruiting in your title. So if we're going to talk a little bit about that and just change gears, how do you prioritize the recruiting process?
So as far as our process at Montclair, and it was the same way at FDU, and I know a lot of schools do it. So I'll just give you the general rundown on how this is. So, like we'll go ahead and we'll be active. We'll hit as many schools as possible in New Jersey, right? And then we'll gather names and we'll go ahead and we'll watch film, all right? And then we got to go ahead and give an evaluation. And a lot of schools, Division I all the way down, they have an evaluation. How everybody does it, probably a little bit different, but similar in a sense. Give them a number grade, and then you have to get passed up the chain, right? So if I'm your position coach or your area recruiter, I'll evaluate you first. At the major Division I levels, right, they have staffs of 50, 60, 70 guys. They have guys that their job is just to watch film and pass it up to the coaches. At this level, we watch it, we grade it, we pass it up, we put you on our board, right? From there, we want you to apply and get accepted, right? Again, everybody does it a little bit differently, but we want to show you a little bit of love, but we also want you to go ahead and show love back to us, right? So, we're not going to just come out and throw you an offer, and then, at number one, you might not get accepted into school. Number two, we don't want to chase you to go ahead and get your paperwork done, right? So again, it puts the accountability into that player. Then we want you to go ahead and visit, right? We want you to visit the campus, see what it's like, meet the coaches, so on and so forth. Do that whole thing, which, tomorrow we got 44 players coming up with their families. Big recruiting day at Montclair. Super excited about that. And then once we do those three things, if we feel that you're one of the top players, then we'll go ahead and extend an offer. But that's just our process. That's how the process was at FDU. I think that it's phenomenal. But we also are established that way.
Right.
And again, like I said, it puts the responsibility in the player. And, we'll go ahead and we'll show you love, but we got to go ahead and make this relationship go ahead and work. And if we see eye to eye and this is something that we want to go ahead and do, that's when we'll go ahead and further the relationship. But, that's kind of our process, and that's how it works. And that's kind of how we go ahead and handle things.
What role, if any, does athleticism versus football IQ play in the evaluation of potential recruits, going off recruiting there?
So, just like, again, the higher you go, the more talent there is, right? And the separation amongst, like, everybody's talented, right? So how do you gain advantages once you go ahead and you're in a room full of talented players, right? I would say at the high school level, right, you can get away with not being as talented, right, and having a high IQ, right? Because then you'll go ahead and give yourself some advantages that some other guys don't.
Right.
But when you put yourself in a room full of, let's just say, talented players who then have good IQ, right, everything starts to go ahead and even out. Obviously, you want both, but not everybody has their positives, their strengths, and then their weaknesses.
Right.
So, we're not going to say, hey, we're not going to recruit this guy because of his IQ, because ultimately as coaches, we're teachers. It's our job to go ahead and teach what we need to go ahead and get done. And there's a lot, and this is going into my teaching background. There's a lot of different forms of teaching, right? So again, you're gonna put it on, you're gonna show them, right? Put it on paper, put it on the board, right? Then you're gonna show them a little bit of film. All right, then from there, we're gonna go ahead and walk through it. Then we're gonna go ahead and we'll do some indie drills. Then we're going into group. Then we're going into team, and then we're gonna go film review. And then you're constantly gonna go ahead and repeat that process. It may work for some guys, it may not, right? But as long as your system and you're strategically trying to go ahead and again connect with everybody and figure out which way they go ahead and learn, I think that's going to go ahead and make things successful for the player and successful for the coach. It takes a lot of work, but you know what? That's ultimately what our job is. So, just going back to you, I don't think that we're going to go ahead and not recruit a player because the IQ level might not be there. Again, everybody's at a different level. It's our job. All right, this guy is genetically talented, right? He has some good attributes, right? He's able to bend. He's got good feet. He's got good linear speed, good arm strength. However, whatever position you're going ahead and evaluating. Okay, now it's our job to go ahead and take this guy and teach him what we want as far as technique, playbook, all that kind of stuff. So, again, we want best of both worlds.
Right.
You don't always get it. So.
Correct. Yeah.
You mentioned a little earlier, Coach, in the conversation about analytics. So obviously, I'm seeing it even in what I do with the training of athletes. It's just becoming if you don't have it, you're kind of behind the eight ball, so to speak. But how has technology evolved, and how important are analytics now to the recruiting process?
Yeah, so just as far as the technology that's involved in college sports, just one of the things that just happened this past year is now you're allowed to use sideline replay.
Right.
Now, we've had that at the high school level since I was coaching at Colonia, I don't know, 2014, 2015, where we had sideline replay. So when I was the offensive coordinator there, I would be in the box and it was hooked up to our camera system, all that kind of stuff. Took forever to set up, but and at the high school level, you only have 7 guys, right? So you're getting ready to call a game, but an hour before you're setting up the end zone camera and the sideline camera, running around like crazy, and then you're coaching in a semifinal game, 48 minutes away from getting to the championship, but the sideline replay, that allows you to make real-time adjustments right on the fly. So, again, if a team is doing something pretty quick, you're able to see it. And then you're also on the sideline and you're showing the players. We were doing that at the high school level for a while. Now, at the college level, this was the first year it was implemented. And now, just for me as a receiver coach, when we would come off the field after every drive, we had the iPads there. And then we were just looking at different things all right, hey, listen, they squatted the corner. We got to make sure that we're adjusting this way. Or, if we're going over some of the quarterback stuff, hey, listen, they're staying in, let's just say, a too high shell here. And, you want to go through your progression. You got to go ahead and get off there. So as far as just film study on the run, you have that advantage now. As far as, with your film study, as far as off of the week, I was kind of telling you about the tendencies and the small details. The more data you input as a staff, the more you're able to go ahead and get back. So we were 48, 52% this year at FDU, first down, run and pass, right? We know our most successful pass play. So now you do an end of the year analysis on your team. Okay, this was our most successful plays. This was our least successful plays. Why was it not successful? What made us successful? Then you just do that end of the year report and stuff like that. And now you're able to just change things and tweak them to make them better and then go ahead and make it worse. As far as the recruiting process, we don't really deal with too much analytics at the Division III level. But, if you're talking about the different, and I've had high school players, you want to get into the 40 times and stuff like that, how it translates. And then, some of the training, I know Nick Saban in some of their strength training as far as hamstring strength with comparison to the ACL tear and stuff like that. Again, not too knowledgeable in there. I know it's there. All right. But
that's very deep work.
Yeah. That's very deep stuff.
Work.
And it's beyond our means right now. So,
yes.
So how important is leadership ability in a player when you assess them during recruiting?
Yeah. So, you need leaders, right? Obviously, there's all different types of leaders. There's guys who keep to themselves, right? But they're constantly, they do everything that you ask and they lead by example. Then there's a lot of guys who it's tough to be a leader, right, in today's society because you get young guys who they don't want to look bad in front of their friends, right? And not everybody's built to be a leader. It takes a different type of person because as a leader, you have to tell people when they're not right.
Right.
And that's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing for the high school level, especially 14, 15, 16. All they care about is their friends and their opinions of them. And then when you get to the college level, it's a little bit different, right? So again, you're trying to get as many leaders as you can. And it's really easy to find out who the leaders are. You put a room full of 20, 30 people working out, you're going to go ahead and see right away. But there's certain qualities. Like in order to be one of them top-notch leaders, like guys who are really respected, you have to be a really good football player or a really good player, athlete, whatever the case may be successful in your field. And then you also have to make sure that you're not hypocritical. Your work ethic has to go ahead and match it and be a little bit above everybody else, right? And then, you have to lead by example off the field as well. So in order to check all three of those boxes, it's rare. It's rare. So, but that's what makes those players special, right? Because it's not for everybody. But obviously, you could tell right away when somebody has some leadership capability because they're not afraid to go ahead and speak up. But they got to also check those other boxes as well.
The full package kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's very rare. Very rare.
The game evolves at all times, but even more so now with the transfer portal, NIL deals for certain athletes. So how do you handle that as a coach, and how have you addressed it? Maybe you're still new at Montclair State, but how was that addressed maybe at FDU or the little bit that you've been at Montclair now?
Yeah, so I was just having a conversation, a couple minutes ago about this. So it's a highly competitive field right now in college athletics and just athletics in general. There are a lot of people who want to go ahead and continue their careers, right? From the major Division I level all the way down to the Division III level, junior college, so on and so forth. And with the changes that are happening at the Division I level, with rosters sizes being cut down,
there's a trickle down effect all the way,
and that's what's going on. So you're getting a trickle down effect, right, of players who have no roster spot now because of the cap on the Division I level. So now you have those players who don't have a home. Then you have major college players who don't want to be backups, right? So they have to go ahead and they're playing behind guys. Let's just say you're a sophomore quarterback and you're playing behind a sophomore already. Well, you're not going to go ahead and just sit there, right? So then you hop into the portal and you're looking for a home. So the backups are moving. Then you go down to, let's just say, FCS, right? Now you're a really good player, right? You have a successful year. Well, let me go ahead. NIL's there. Let me go ahead and hop in a portal, get myself to a bigger school. Let me go ahead and get a nice little, NIL deal, right? Make some money, support my family, which totally understand.
Yes.
Right? Get in there, right? So then you have this constant change. Then you have also the same thing at the Division II level, right? Again, trickling down. Same things happen in Division II. Guys are trying to get Division I, right? Or you get Division II guys that might go ahead. They might not be happy, so they go down to Division III. Then you have junior college, right? Who are looking to go ahead and find a home. And then you have all these high school kids who are trying to go ahead and get themselves up in there as well, right? So you have an influx of players coming down and guys coming up, and that's why you get a lot of players who are stuck in the portal, right, who don't find a home. Then if you walk through the room, you walk through the door and you don't look a certain way or have a certain speed, then that's going to go ahead and affect you. Then academically, if you don't check out, that's going to go ahead and affect you. So what's happening is the Division III level, right, is flooded with really good players, right? And, just a rundown, we have, as a receiver, right, we have a guy who was at Rutgers and Texas State. We have 2 Division II guys who just transferred in. We have a quarterback that came in who was at Utica, but he was originally a walk-on at Boston College. A Lehigh quarterback just transferred in. There's a lot, like that's the Division III level, and I just named 5 scholarship players,
Right.
right? So again, highly competitive. You got to, again, and now you're looking, once you get there, you got to look for separation, right? We go back to the separation. How do you separate yourself from everybody? But it's tough. It's tough. If I was a high school coach, I would feel like I would feel pressure to go ahead, because there's a lot of good high school players. I've been fortunate enough to go ahead and, I had AJ Bosch is playing at Bucknell right now. I'm trying to think. Ali Lee went to Stony Brook. Santino went to the Division II school, St. Anselm. Kamara went there as well. Like, in today's world, I don't know if they got there. Like, if they were coming out of high school, I don't know if they would get there right now.
Right.
It would have been a tough sell. So, like, in that aspect, I'm pretty happy, right? That I don't have to go ahead and then, this could go be a whole different. And then their parents want to know why they're not getting recruited.
Right.
But you don't understand the whole landscape. Then you have coaches, right, who may be on the hot seat, right? And, they're fighting for their job. Their job is, they got to put food on the table for their family. So now they have to make a choice. Are they going to recruit the 18, 17-year-old who's underdeveloped, who needs 2 to 3 years to develop to go ahead and get themselves on the field? Or do they go into the portal and get a player who's 20, 21 years old, has 2 or 3 years of eligibility, who's a grown man now, who's already did the college level, who could go ahead and understands the expectations and the demands? So that which way you think that coach is going to go ahead and go? He's going to go to the grown adult, not the young man there. So again, a lot of different philosophies in it. Every staff has different ideas and how they want to go ahead and attack it. But I really do feel bad for high school players. I don't mind the NIL, right? Because I think that everybody's circumstance is different.
Right.
Again, that it's past my pay grade to go ahead and make which way it should go and should not. But there's a lot of talented players at the Division III level, and not everybody realizes that anymore.
And there's a lot that goes into it, just like you said. So coming to an end here, what advice can you give to high school athletes of all sports who aspire to play in the college level?
Yeah, so you want to go ahead and find your advantage, right? So what could go ahead and help you separate from everybody else? The first thing that always comes is academically. Maintain your grades. Get yourself to a point where every school can go ahead and recruit you, right? You don't want that to go ahead and shrink your options, right? You want to give yourself as many as possible, because there's levels to things, right? There's, AJ Bosch is playing in the Patriot League. That's a high academic league, right? But if his GPA wasn't a 3.6, I don't think that he's playing, all right, at a certain school. Again, talented player. That's the first thing. The next thing is, if you're going to do it, dive right into it. Be obsessed with being successful, and success leaves clues, right? John, I remember when you were in high school, right? You were going to wrestling practice and pretty sure jiu-jitsu after, right? And doing that pretty much, let's just say, every day. Like, you were outworking everybody, right? That's why you were a state championship, because you were obsessed with being successful. The most talented guys, they wake up and their first thought is of the day, how am I going to go ahead and get better?
Right.
And if you don't have that thought process, and then you're not going to go ahead and reach your potential, reach your max, and go ahead and give yourself the best opportunity. So between grades and just, success leaves clues, follow the successful people, surround yourself with them, and then ultimately, you'll go ahead and be going down the right track.
Listening to you talk and answering these last couple of questions, I think what I'm hearing too, and it's a message that I relay to my athletes that I train, is stand out for all the right reasons. And getting a little bit more like that insider information. The field is extremely competitive now, and you have to stand out and make yourself be known positively to have an opportunity. Because I think a lot of times too, families, athletes, kids, they think, well, if I just show up, it's enough, and that's not the case anymore. Because like you said, the trickle down effect from the Division I is that it's pushing players out. There's not a home for them really, like there once was, and you really have to be committed to your craft to even have a shot
Yeah.
is what it sounds like to me these days.
And you know, you don't want to get away from the most important part, which is just you got to have fun with it too.
Absolutely.
Right?
You got to
And,
enjoy what you're doing.
Like if you're not having fun with it and you're putting the pressure on yourself, like, and it's almost a job, right?
Right.
Like enjoy what you're doing, but,
I agree.
but do it the right way. And then you're out there, you're having a good time while working hard at the same time. So don't lose sight of that.
Well, Coach, we know we got a very busy weekend ahead of you with a lot of recruits and families coming up. We want to thank you again for taking the time to jump on with us at Destination Talk with Paz and Harry. Continued success in the new position, as well as moving forward. It'll be football season before we know it again.
Yeah.
It'll be here before we know it. But that's a wrap on episode 10 of Destination Talk. We will see you guys again real soon.
Thanks.
Thanks.